that inspire us. You're listening to the Sounds of Success podcast with your host, Jim Lombardo. Brought to you by the Rising Tide Foundation. Let's jump right in.
Alfonso, it's good to be back in the studio, my friend.
Always fun to be in the studio. My favorite place.
Listen, for those who don't know, Alfonso is our producer. He keeps the tapes rolling and he keeps us on track. No pun intended. So how do you think we're going to be doing today, Alfonso?
Looks okay. You look good.
Oh, wow.
Sound
Geez.
all right?
Boy, have a cup of coffee there, Alfonso, because you seem a little sad. Are you sad today?
You know I'm a laid back guy.
I love that. All right. So let me ask you a question. An artist turning their passion into a career. That's rare, right?
You mean if their passion is medicine and they go be a doctor instead?
Oh, here he goes. See, this is what I'm talking about. You can't make life easy, can you? I'm talking about an artist who has the passion and is able to turn that into a career. That's a tough thing, right?
It is very tough.
As a matter of fact, studies show that only 10% of artists can make a sustainable living with their work. Our guest, he did it and ended up creating artwork for one of the most iconic rock bands of all time. So let's dive into the story with Antonio Rionegro, who turned his passion into a career and left his mark on rock history. Antonio, welcome to the studio.
Nice to be here.
So, Alfonso, we need a sound check, don't we?
Sound check. Check one, check two.
To do this, Tony, we're just going to do something a little bit different. And we're going to reveal a song that we think captures you, your nature, and your personality. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, Tony, I could have gone with a lot of low-hanging fruit here. There's a lot of stuff I could have gone with, but I didn't do that. That's not what this podcast is about. So I went a little off the board, and I went with the second song on the 1978 self-titled debut album from Dire Straits with the song In the Gallery.
Nice.
Seemed very applicable. But Tony, only you can answer this. In the Gallery, did we nail it or did we fail it?
I don't know.
Are you familiar with the song?
You know, I'm familiar with a lot of Dire Straits music. I just don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember it.
It's Sultans of Swing, same album.
Right.
Okay, we know that song. But this is a little lesser known song. And I dug a little bit. You know, I could have gone Paint It Black, Rolling Stones. I could have gone with some simple stuff. But I thought, you know what? You're not a simple guy. So I thought I'd go a little bit further. So I think Alfonso, we may have to table whether or not we nailed it or failed it, because Tony seems a little kind of confused by that song. So I don't know. So I'm gonna give you a break on that one. Okay, Tony?
All right.
So
All right, Jim. Let's lay down track one and get that backstory.
okay, Tony, for track one, let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Staten Island, New York.
I mean, how do you rank your childhood from a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I think, it was good. It was a good childhood. I would say 10,
How so? What made it a 10?
Well, I had a lot of fun growing up. But I also, it's funny. I come from a big Italian family.
Okay.
I used to go to work all the time with my dad when I was started at 8 years old.
Okay. Where's that? Construction. Okay.
And what's interesting is, if there were a bunch of kids in the yard, my dad would load everybody up into the dump truck, and then we would all go and break concrete or put up fencing.
What age is this?
This is around 10 years old, 10 or 12 years old.
Okay. Okay.
And the neighbors and all my friends' parents didn't care. It was better that we were off the streets and working. Than causing havoc. Around the neighborhood.
And leading to the name, right?
Correct. Exactly.
That's great. So, what about as a teenager? What are you thinking about? What are you curious about?
So as a teenager, I wasn't really big in music. as I thought I would be. You know, I mean, I like the Beatles and, a lot of different, smaller groups, other groups, right? But then I came across a friend of mine, and we got into Iron Maiden together. And when I saw the album Killers, it really impressed me. Like
the artwork or the album?
The artwork. And the album was amazing. The music for me was incredible. It wasn't the Beatles, It was a totally, So it really, like, between the music and the artwork, it really made me want to be like an artist. So I had my denim jacket painted by a local guy in Staten Island, and I remember picking up the jacket, and it was, I think it looked better than the album.
Wow. The cover,
so
the Killer's cover. I'm assuming it's the Killer's cover.
Right.
Which you've got Eddie. Which, for anybody who doesn't know, you've got Eddie there with a semi-bloody hatchet, who seems like he's
correct.
He's gotten into his own mischief that day.
Right. Yep. And at that moment on, I wanted to be. I always drew since I was a little kid, but I really wanted to make that commitment to be an artist at that moment.
So you've got a jean jacket with a violent scene of Eddie walking through the neighborhood as a teenager.
Exactly.
And Tony, knowing you now, I just can't see it. I can't. I like you slip it on Iron Maiden is really a departure from what I thought would be. So that's pretty great. How would you describe your current role? You use the word havoc, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how you describe your current role.
So I'm co-owners of a art and design studio, and we do everything from illustrations to photography to sculpture to fine art painting. Every day at Havoc is a new project comes across our board. We don't specialize in one area, so sometimes we're branding companies. Sometimes we're creating illustrations for Penguin Books. Other times we're doing, posters in the music industry. And so every day is a little bit of a challenge for us. I do a lot of industrial photography with my business partner. We'll travel the country, go into all the different shipping ports and photographing cargo coming on and off the ships.
Interesting.
And I'm on top of cranes or bridges, and I'm deathly afraid of heights. So I white knuckle it the whole time. And I get a lot of chuckles from the guys who are, longshoremen and been doing it for like 50 years. So it is a trip.
So you talked a little bit about the construction, but did you have any other jobs growing up?
Oh yeah. I mean, aside from working with my dad, as I got older, I ended up working in, department stores. And then as I got older, I went to college. My dad said something to me when I was really young. He said, either you're going to go to college or you're going to continue with shoveling, concrete.
Right, right.
Dad, I think I know how to draw. So I decided to go to college and make a push to become an artist. And that's how the career kind of took off after graduating college.
Some of those retail jobs, I mean, I imagine those were, for a creative person, a little bit painful.
I always admired those little jobs. I mean, because I think they shape me.
Yeah, right. That was the next question. Was it a crappy job, or did you learn something from it?
Well, it was a supermarket job. Both of them were supermarket jobs. And, it was a crappy job. But, at the time, being around all these other people working together as a team was always a lot of fun. And I worked the back room of a supermarket. I had to clean up and all that. So I was always playing practical jokes on people. And, so we had a lot of camaraderie.
Yeah.
And the managers were great. They let us get away with, having a little bit of fun, but also getting a lot of our work done. You know?
What do you think the turning point was? I think you just kind of alluded to it, where you're either going to shovel concrete or kind of follow a passion in drawing. So do you think that that's what led you down the path, the artist path?
Well, working construction is really hard work, and I don't mind hard work, but I had a lot of fun drawing all the time, but making a living at it, it seemed like impossible to do. And I remember my parents saying to me, you should become an architect instead of an artist. And I was like, I don't know about being an architect, but he goes, you know, you always have work. So I remember going to one of my teachers in high school, and I told him that, and he said, no, he goes, you don't want to be an architect. He goes, you're not made to be an architect. You're made to be an artist. And I was like, all right. And that changed me. And I remember in high school, he had directed me to take a class during the summer in New York City because I really didn't know how to draw as well. I wasn't a good draftsman to get accepted into college. So I took this program. It was the New York Drawing Academy, and I spent 2 months, also my entire summer, 8 hours a day, drawing from classical cast statues. And the guy who founded the school was Andy Warhol and a guy named Stuart Piver, who invented the Ziploc bag.
Interesting. So he's got a few bucks.
I had never met Andy Warhol, and I only found out years later that he was one of the founders of the school. And it was a really classical education. You sat there and you drew like the Renaissance masters. You spent a week sketching one of the statues. And they had offered me a full scholarship because I was only 16 at the time to go to school there. And I said, you know, I think I need to go to an art college and get my liberal arts, you know, under my belt and all that. And so they said, all right. And so I remember staying an extra month on my own at the school, just drawing every day to build my portfolio. Yeah. And basically that portfolio kind of got me into college.
Oh, interesting. So where do you end up going to college then?
I ended up going to Pratt in Brooklyn.
Okay. So we've got some really interesting stuff, and I'll let you lead there, but
Track 2, Sound of Now.
Your fans want to know what you're up to now and how you kind of got to the shirt you're wearing and some of the artwork that's behind you. Do you want to go into a little bit of kind of the pivot there where maybe your life took a different turn?
Sure. So I had graduated college and I was working various jobs for t-shirt companies, you know, and I ended up meeting my wife at the time, was my girlfriend. And she had said to me, do you want to go to a concert? And I was like, all right. She goes, it's the Grateful Dead. And I was like, who? She goes, the Grateful Dead. So I had heard of the band, but I really didn't listen too much I wasn't a big music buff. So I remember saying to her, is it free? And she goes, yeah, the concert's free. I said, all right, well, let's go, you know. So
Grateful Dead go to the free. What a deal.
Right. So we go to the show, and my father-in-law had done work for the band, and so did my brother-in-law. And my brother-in-law had asked me to airbrush a shirt for one of the managers, because they had been working with the band, tuning up the keyboards, the Hammond organ, and whenever a woofer would blow up, they would replace the woofer. So the band would give them complimentary tickets, because my father-in-law would charge him like so little. He was one of these technicians that would go to churches and fix the organs at the churches.
Right.
So working with the Grateful Dead was a big change for him. And he was kind of in his 70s at the time. So I'm on stage and the manager says to me, you the guy who painted the shirt? I said, I am. He goes, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I just graduated college. I'm an artist. He said, do you want to work for us? And I'm like, do you guys pay? He's like, yeah, we pay. He goes, we pay really well. So I was like, all right, well, that's great. So he said to me, the next time we are in town, bring some sketches to show me. So I assumed that their next tour was going to be next year. So I had plenty of time to get the sketches done. So 2 months later, they're back in town and my wife reaches out to me. She says, the Dead are back. I got tickets. Let's go to the show. So I figured the manager forgot all about it.
Right.
So we get to the show, we're on stage with the band and they're playing and, the manager comes over to me and he says, where are my sketches? I said, well, I didn't bring them. I left them at home. He says, all right, bring them to the Ritz-Carlton tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and show me the sketches.
Now, how old are you here? How old are you?
I just graduated college. So I was like 22 years old.
22. Right. Okay.
22. Yeah. So, I go, all right, so I grabbed my wife and during intermission, I said to her, we got to get the F out of here. She goes, why? I said, I have no sketches. Right. So race back home And I stayed up all night, just drawing, getting a bunch of ideas done. And the next morning, I took the ferry into New York City, met my wife at the Ritz-Carlton, and I met with, it was Kid Candelario, and I gave him the sketches. He looks at them, and he says, all right. He goes, we'll call you. I said, okay, great. So,
what are you thinking right there? Like, what's going through your head? Are you nervous? Is your heart pounding?
A little bit. I mean,
okay.
I didn't know what to expect. It was kind of one of my first jobs working
right.
for a major group. So I was kind of like, I said to my wife, they're never going to call me. And she goes, you have no idea the loyalty the Dead have. They'll definitely call you,
Yeah.
So now 2 months go by. It's getting like towards the winter time, and I'm sick in bed with the flu. And back then we had no answering machine. And our answering machine was my Italian mom.
Right.
So I had this little kid in my neighborhood calling me every day, asking me to airbrush his motorcycle helmet. And I really kind of didn't want to do it because I didn't want to charge him, and I didn't want to do it for free. So my mom every day, he knew I got home from work at 5:00. So he'd call me every day at 5:00. So that day my parents were out and the phone is ringing. I walk into the kitchen, sick as a dog. I pick up the phone and I hang up. I knew it was that kid. So phone starts as I turn around, walking back to bed, the phone starts ringing again. And as I'm picking up the receiver, I hear on the other end, don't hang up. This is the Grateful Dead. And I said to her, it was Eileen Law. And I said, Eileen, I am so sorry. I said, I had this little kid in my neighborhood call me. So she turns to me, she goes, are you going to paint his helmet now? I said, well, now I'm going to have to, because every phone call I got, So, and that was the beginning of my career with the Dead. And I remember her saying to me, we have all your sketches here. We want to go with one of them. She says, but your skeletons are really scary. She says, because I liked Iron Maiden, so my skeletons were kind of scary.
Right.
She goes, I need you to change the designs and make the skeletons all happy. And at that moment, it made sense to me, and I was like, all right. So all my skeletons are always smiling. Take my shirt now.
Right.
So you see the big smile on them. And I always feel like when a skeleton is smiling, it makes me happy and it makes the fans happy.
Sure. What's some of the work that you did? Where predominantly did the work come from? What were you actually doing?
So in the beginning, I started doing T-shirt designs for the band.
Okay.
So my very first design was for Chinese. The Grateful Dead do a New Year's Chinese New Year concert. So they had asked me to do a Chinese New Year feeling kind of T-shirt design. So I did this because it was the year of the serpent. I did the snake, and the snake had all these little skeleton faces in the background. Each one different. And I remember the snake was a little scary looking, and I think I had him smoking a joint. And they called me up and they said, look, the snake is a little fierce. Can we, make him a little bit happier and no joint in his mouth?
Yeah, sure.
I took the joint out of his mouth and I put sunglasses on him, and they loved it.
Okay.
And the back of the shirt, so the front of it said, Grateful Dead on two sidebars, but the back of the shirt had the same design, only had a yin yang on the back. And then it had, I took Asian characters and I tried getting my friends to spell out Grateful Dead. And they couldn't, no one could figure it out. So I just took the prettiest Asian characters I could find and put them on the back. So it could say like F you in Chinese. I don't know. I mean, I've never figured out what they meant. They just looked like characters. So I used those.
That's hysterical. Did you ever get that translated?
No, I never got it translated.
Oh my God. You should get that translated. Just see what it says.
I know. I should use Google and
there's got to be something that you could make it easy.
And
ChatGPT or something.
Right, exactly.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about you now. Well, first, how does the work come to you? Are you seeking it out, or are you getting inbound calls?
So it's interesting you say that. My business partner Tom and I, we've been in business for probably close to 30 years, and I started out freelancing. I worked in the film industry, designing storyboards for a company called Interfilm. I worked for a t-shirt design company, and I was designing work for Starter and all that. And I had gotten laid off. Had gotten laid off at Interfilm, which was by far one of my favorite full-time jobs. I mean, I worked with Adam West from Batman
Wow.
on a film, and met Steven Spielberg at the company. And so that was my passion, designing storyboards for these films. We were doing interactive films for the movie theater. When the company went under, I was always freelancing, and Interfilm didn't mind that I freelanced for the Grateful Dead at the time. And I always felt, even though I'm working full time, I should always be freelancing. In case you get laid off, I'm still
Sure.
going to have work, because now I'm married and I should be feeding my family. And that's what I did. So I was very fortunate to always find work with good people, good clients that trusted me with different types of project, whether it be the Grateful Dead or different T-shirt manufacturers, and word of mouth. Word of mouth really got me out there. I was never part of a networking group and never understood that. So a lot of my clientele came from friends recommending me for different projects.
Right. I guess I would think of art as being very personal, right? Not only for you, but also maybe the client. So what do you think your work, and how is it differentiated from other artists that are out there?
Well, I mean, the way I was trained as a location artist, so I can go on location and sketch. And that kind of sets me a little bit apart from different artists. I mean, everyone works a little differently. There's no right or wrong way.
Right.
But my teacher, Dave Pasalacqua, he was a student of Walt Disney. And Dave trained us the way he was trained back in the 1950s and 60s, and so a lot of times, I'll get invited, I'll be asked to go draw some ships at the shipping terminal, and I have a 4-foot sketch pad, and I'll sketch that new ship that's coming into port. And then an hour later.
Is this cruise ships or cargo?
Cargo ships.
Cargo. Interesting. Okay.
And then I will show the the president of the shipping terminal, the drawing, and he'll make a presentation to the client who owns the cargo ship.
Right. Got it.
The president.
Interesting.
And sometimes they come from China, sometimes they come from different parts of the world. And he'll make a presentation and give it to them as a gift and explain to them that their artist did this on location. Yeah. And it really cements, the type of work that I've always had a passion for. And, that's kind of what sets me apart a little bit from maybe some other artists or design companies, but it also separates me from AI, because I'm a living being. So someone's watching me do this 4-foot drawing where, right now people will always say to me, are you afraid of AI? Not really. I'm not afraid of AI. I do things that are a little bit differently. I'm recording something at the moment, which a computer can't do. They're waiting for prompts. My prompt is I get a phone call at 6 a.m. You got to get your ass down to the shipping terminal with your sketch pad and do some drawing, And then I hightail my ass out there and do the drawing.
So Tony, you are a great representation of an entrepreneur. There's no question about it. I mean, that's since prior to college. Do you ever feel any pressure to create?
All the time. I think all the time, and
do you ever run out of ideas? I mean, like you're thinking, oh, geez. Now, Sketchpad's a little bit different, right? But is there any moment where you're feeling like, geez, I feel a little pressure to create that commission that maybe you received from a client?
Yeah, it happens. It can happen often, The way I was trained, my teacher always believed in. He said to me, look, sometimes you can't get your work done and you can get depressed, like that ideas don't come or whatever. And so he would always recommend, like, get out there, get out into the field, go to a museum, draw, get inspired, look at other types of work. And he was right. He said to me, like, he would tell me, and he had done work for tremendous clients, Bantam Books. He had done work for Standard Oil, and he'd done a lot of work for Clint Eastwood at the time. And he said to me, imagine being depressed for 5 years. How do you dig yourself out of it?
Wow. Yeah.
So he said it happened to him. And he says, you got to work through it. So when I'm not feeling that inspired, I grab my stuff, I head out to a location and I start drawing, or I go for a run, get some ideas. I come back, you do different things to stimulate different parts of your brain to get ideas out.
So when you're feeling that way, or you're kind of like working through things, who's there to support you and keep you inspired?
So I'm really fortunate to have a good business partner, my buddy Tom. And
in 30 years, I mean, you're like it's a U2 run with your partner.
And I don't consider him like a business. I consider him like a brother for me.
How do you make that work for 30 years?
That's, I guess, honesty. We both trained by the same professor. We both have the same values, but we have different ways of working, different opposite ends of the spectrum. And sometimes we collaborate on projects together, and sometimes we go into our own corners and work. And he'll work on ideas and I'll work on my ideas, and then we come together. When it comes to like different projects, like for instance, The Grateful Dead, it's all me. But I'll show him the designs and I'll say, what do you think? And he'll say, oh, that sucks. I'm like, you kidding? He goes, no, it sucks. He goes, you go get back out there and start drawing again, And so he lights a fire under my ass, and there's no comfort with Tom, because he'll tell it like it is. He's never going to sugarcoat it. So when I know when he's quiet, the designs are not working. And I know I got to get back to the drawing board. And then, if I show him a drawing and he'll say, that is amazing. He'll tell me, he goes, dude, that is amazing. He goes, you got to run with it. So I'm really lucky to have someone by my side like that. And also my wife. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'll show my wife stuff and she'll say, doesn't really resonate with me. So I know if it doesn't resonate with her, it's not going to resonate with the general public.
She doesn't say it sucked like Tom would, correct?
No, she'll just say, no,
she's more tactful.
I have to sleep with her,
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So,
right.
She's a little, she's a little bit nicer. She's, I don't know. It's not my, but when I do a design, especially when I did work for the Grateful Dead, I don't do 2 or 3 designs. I'll do like 15 or 30 designs.
Right.
And so I have an abundance of art. So my wife will look at some stuff and she'll say, wow, I really love this one here. You know?
Right.
And then I'll pick some ideas and I'll say, all right. So if she picks that one and it's already in my wheelhouse, I'll like, all right, she picked that. So it's good. And 99% of the time, the ones that my wife likes, most of my clients like, she loves art. She draws a little bit. She paints a little bit, but her profession is not art. So I value her opinion. Or sometimes I'll show my brother, and show some people, or just to get an idea, like, well, what do you think this feels? And if I get a chuckle out of them, I know I'm on the right path.
Right. So your wife is a good sounding board. How long have you been married?
34 years.
Wow, another U2 kind of a tenure.
Exactly.
So what's the secret to a 34-year marriage?
I think honesty.
Boy, and both things. Yeah,
honesty is it works in my favor,
I should have picked that song for you. Honesty, right? I should have done that.
Exactly. I mean, I think I'm always truthful, with everything I do, as crazy as it might be, I just tell her, we share everything together. We never hold secrets. And I think that helps a lot. And I joke around so much. I joke around a lot, so I think having a good sense of humor in a relationship is really important.
See, I have a sense of humor with my wife, but she stares at me like I'm speaking a different language. That's the only problem with that.
I know.
And I'm laughing hysterically, and she saes, "I don't get it."
They don't get it.
Yeah, that's
your friends will laugh every single time. Every time. And, you can tell them the same joke like 10 times. You still get the same laughter. Right?
Tony, I gotta tell you, I'm on jokes I told 2 decades ago. I still think they're hilarious, but I don't know. That's me. So you talked a little bit about sounding boards that will tell you if a piece is good or they don't like it, right?
Correct.
So this is gonna be a tough one, but what makes the art good, or is that all a personal opinion?
It's really personal, and it depends on the client. It depends on a lot of different things, who you're looking at, what the job is. I'm not just drawing skeletons. Sometimes we're branding, logo companies. Sometimes we're doing a sculpture for the International Longshoreman or a mural. A mural may take between 6 to a year, 6 to 12 months to paint. And so it's a long, long process.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different factors. It depends on what the project is and the extent of it. I do work for a weed company in Vermont, and I do daily doodles.
Weed like dandelions?
No.
Or okay. All right.
Weed,
got it.
Pot, and
I understand.
And they will
not the dandelion.
No dandelion.
Or crabgrass.
Unless you could smoke dandelion. So, and I'll do sketches for him. He's a big fan of my work. So he'll give me ideas, and I'll do a drawing in the morning, like a doodle. I sit, have coffee, and I'll spend doing a doodle. Take me a half hour to an hour to do this drawing, and then we'll post them on Instagram. And 99% of the times, he loves what I do, and it gives me creative freedom. The Grateful Dead did the same exact thing. Some of my best clients trust Tom and I with our work. They trust us to the extent that they let us do what we want. They don't really give us a lot of direction. They're looking for direction from us. And that's what makes Havoc unique in that sense,
So if I like dogs playing poker, that's a personal thing, correct?
Pretty much,
Okay. That's not necessarily good art, but it's if I like it, it's good enough.
It's good, yeah. If it resonates with you, of course it's great art if you love it,
right? Right.
And who am I to judge? I look at that dog post and I laugh every time.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, if it was in a museum, I don't know.
Right. You'd question the museum.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems as if you're almost doing work for someone, posting on Instagram, so you're getting almost publicity and promotion at the same time you're working. Am I getting that right?
Correct, yes.
So most of the promotion is online, or how is there other ways you promote?
I mean, through word of mouth, but mostly these days it's basically online. I mean, years ago, we would have to mail postcards out to creative directors, clients, take photos of your work. Now it's having a good website and basically word of mouth and getting stuff out there on social media. You can really, if you're good with social media, some people, I worked with a producer at Interfilm, and I didn't realize he was following my photography Instagram. And a couple of years ago, he called me up and he says, and sometimes, even though you're not getting as many likes, people still are looking, which is interesting for me. And this guy, Bill, called me up and he said, Tone, I love your black and white street photography in New York City. He said, we're doing a show, a Broadway show called Rocktopia, and we'd like to use a lot of your photography for the show. And I'm like, where did you see it? He goes, I follow you on Instagram. I was like,
interesting.
I've never seen you. He goes, yeah, sometimes I hit like, sometimes I don't. He says, but we love it. So from my Instagram post, Bill saw my work and used it for a Broadway show, which was really kind of fun and cool.
You always hear about some of the struggle that an artist has with selling out. Have you ever had that feeling?
That's tough because the people that hire us trust us. And sometimes Tom and I, if we think we're selling it, we won't do the work. I remember there's some project somebody might have asked us. I remember it was like doing illustrations for a Bible, right? And they wanted us to copy another artist. And I'm like, no, if you want us to do these illustrations, this is going back 20 years ago. Like, if you want us to do the illustrations, we're going to interpret these passages the way we draw. I'm not going to copy another guy's style to make you happy and you're going to offer me less money, that ain't going to So we turned the work down. It wasn't really, what we wanted to do. So, but that rarely happens.
What would you tell an up and coming artist who's struggling with that? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, I think you have to stick to what you're good at, and I think you have to believe in the work that you do, and you have to keep promoting, and you have to talk to people. People don't know what you do,
Right.
And I laugh all the time, right? So I did a poster signing in Las Vegas, and when I tell people I'm the original backstage artist for the Grateful Dead, they look at me and I'm like, what a backstage, and they're like, yeah, oh, it's great. They don't get it. They think I'm making it up, or they think that I'm like a guy that just likes to do I'm an artist that does Grateful Dead art, but I'm not affiliated with the band.
Right.
There are a lot of artists that do that, and they're good. They're really, really good artists in their own right. But that's not me. I actually did work for the band. So I decided when I went to Vegas to do this poster signing for Dead & Company, I printed up these little books, these little tiny little books like this, right? Mm-hmm. And in the book, I would hand these out. Once people opened the book, I would say, I'm the Grateful Dead backstage pass artist. They would look at the book and they get it right away. Like,
right.
You actually did work for the band.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, like that's it. I've been telling you that. And about a year, 2 years ago, when Dead & Company played at the Sphere, it was a year ago in 2024, Dead & Company asked to use a lot of my backstage passes for the Sphere. So while the band was playing, my backstage passes were featured behind the band.
Oh, right? That's cool.
And they bought 62 of my passes. And I'm in a networking group, and I've been in that group for 15 years. And I tell everybody that I'm the original backstage. I do all the artwork for the group and everything. And one of the guys that I've known for about 3 or 4 years, he had gone to the show. And when I saw him at the networking meeting, he goes, dude, I can't believe you're the guy that did all the work for the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, right.
I've been telling you that for years.
Yeah.
He goes, it just never connect. It didn't connect,
Yeah.
Until he saw it in person. And that happens a lot, So I think as a young artist, kids today, young artists have to let people know what they do, and they have to tell everybody. They have to, I tell my dentist, I tell my doctor, I tell everyone, because I can't afford to have my work sitting in my studio.
So you're at the doctor, you're telling him, you're doing the backstage patches, and he says, okay, drop your pants. Yeah. Is that basically how it goes?
Basically, pretty much. Or he'll say, oh, sure, who designed that shirt? I said, I did. He goes, take it off.
Right, exactly. So I guess I'm kind of curious about, even from the early days when you first connected with the band, how did you price anything? And how do you price things now? What goes into that pricing of any piece? How do you come up with that?
That is one of the toughest questions I think anyone has to deal with, especially as a young artist. I think sometimes you throw out a budget out there for people and you see if they can afford it. And if they can't, hopefully they come back to you and say, I can't afford $1,000, but I can afford $500. Or, I can't afford $1,000, I can afford $800. So you kind of meet in the middle, or if it's $1,000 and $500. But when I say to someone, this project's going to cost you $5,000, and they come back and say, well, I only have $500, then we're so far apart. That it doesn't work. And, I've been in the business for a long time. So it's still a learning curve in terms of trying to figure out if clients are okay with the budgets that you're proposing. And a lot of times clients will have a budget set for you already. In the music industry, a lot of times they'll come up and say, our budget is X amount for this poster design. Do you want to do it? And if it's too low, even if I pay my bills, I won't do it, because you have to you have to be in a certain place. You can't do every job for no money, and a lot of times some people, and those are the clients you don't want to work with, they wave a carrot in front of you and they say, well, if you do this design,
there's more work behind it. Right.
There's never any other work,
Right.
But I try to do a lot of work for charities, because I always feel it's better if I'm going to work for free, I'd rather donate my time to charities.
Yeah.
It's going to a really good cause and it's helping the charity. And I'm always meeting so many nice people along the way. And, not everybody, I'm Catholic. I don't go to church, right? If I went to church, I'd probably get struck by lightning, so my feeling
straight
is,
right in the pew, huh? Lightning comes straight through.
Exactly. right before I enter the door, I get,
that might cause some people at the church to think that you're a holy man if you're in church and got struck by lightning. They're like, oh, look, it's Tony. Holy cow. Going back to the pricing, I'm just really curious about that. Do you when you throw a number out to someone, in your head, are you kind of thinking about material cost, like hard dollar things, like material costs, and then the value that you personally bring to the table, and then maybe a little bit of a premium on that? Do you have a model to actually price anything, or does they say, hey, I got $5,000, and you say, okay, I could do it for that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really a hard call. And this is where it's really difficult for artists to know their worth, right?
Right.
So I would always when I was young, I would ask my teacher, like, how do you price out stuff? And I remember he was working for Bantam Books, and he told me this story. He said, they would give him 4 books a week to illustrate. And he was getting $3,500 a book cover to illustrate. One year he was flying out to Alaska and he went to see the art director, and the art director said, we need this week. He said, well, I'm flying out to Alaska. I can't, for a photo shoot, I can't do this. And he goes, but I always my teacher always would bring his art supplies, like his bag of art with him. Like, so he drew everywhere he went, on a train or, in a plane or whatever. So he said, listen, if you don't hold it against me, I'll do the covers right here in the office. And he says, but that reflection can't be on me, like, just because I can get them done. So the art director was like, just do them, right? So I remember he did a drawing for this one book cover. He said he painted his hand red and he slapped it on a book cover. And he told me it took me longer to wash my hand than it did for doing the art. So the art director, after he was done with the 4 covers, he said, I can't believe this only took you like an hour to do. He said, no, it didn't take me an hour to do. That took me 30 years to do.
Right.
He said, my experience enables me to be able to think quickly and get the work done. So a lot of times, if I'm sketching on location and I'm doing a drawing for a company and I get the drawing done in 1 hour, it's all the back end, all the years of learning, Now I may get a few $1,000s for that 1 hour, but I mean, it took me a long time to get to that point.
Yeah.
And that's where, clients, like, they say, well, it only took you an hour. No, it just didn't take me an hour. So it's, you have to base it on, how long it takes you to come up with ideas, how long the execution is. And sometimes if a budget is only $1,500, I may spend a week designing ideas because I don't want to give out anything I can't live with. Because once it's out there, it's always the money doesn't reflect the quality of the work. I'm going to always give it 110% of whatever I'm doing. So if I'm putting out there something, I'm going to do this logo, I'm only getting, $500.
So you only do $300 worth of work.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm
sure,
still, it might take me longer because you got to come up with the ideas. Anything that leaves the studio has to be the best it can be at that given moment.
Kind of like how this podcast started. The best we could do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's always bumps along the road, right?
Yeah, you gotta just deal with it. So, anything you wish maybe someone had told you when you were starting out that now?
I was really lucky to have studied with my mentor, my teacher, for as long as I did, up until the day he died. And he told us a lot of stories. It wasn't just about teaching us art. He taught us about business. And I think a lot of and look, I always feel you have to have street smarts too in business. You're not just it's great to be an artist and do what you love, right? Wake up every day and get to draw and create art. But there's another end of it, and there's another side of it that is business side of it. And my teacher really taught us about business and how do you deal with clients who are tough. And he would say to us all the time, he goes, you don't have one boss, you're going to have 100 bosses. And you have to treat them with respect. And sometimes they're not going to like what you do. And you have to know how to navigate through that. I remember one time I got hired to go to Yankee Stadium. I was doing a t-shirt for the Yankees. And they wanted me to go to the stadium and do a drawing of the stadium inside the seating area. So I was like, all right, great. I take my sketch pad. I'm working for this t-shirt company. I get there. I meet this guy sitting behind it. I don't even remember his name. He wasn't even an art director. He was just a guy who worked for the Yankees, and he oversaw all the merchandise. So I go there. I do this big three big drawings of the stadium, and I come back in 2 hours later and I show him. He goes, "This sucks."
Wow.
He goes to me, "This is the worst art I've ever seen."
Oh, jeez.
Now, I'm a young guy, and I'm like, oh, my God, I've never been spoken to that way before, right? So he says to me, "Listen, kid," he's smoking a big cigar, and he says to me, "Listen, kid, go back out there and do another drawing." He says, "Instead of arching the stadium, like curving it towards the bottom, the seating, I mean, you have to see the drawing. The seating was all curved, distorted, like a U. Right.
Right.
And then home base. I'm drawing all the seats. I was drawing of the stadium from inside without people, just drawing of, and, he said, and the reason why, he goes to me, "I want you to draw it like an arch." He goes, "Because most of the guys buying our t-shirts have big bellies. And if it arches towards the bottom, it's going to enhance their belly. So
Interesting.
Arch it the opposite way." So I'm like, all right, I guess that makes sense. Right. And I'm like, you know what? This is my chance to get the hell out of here, right?
Yeah.
And I'll never have to see me again. I won't have to do this drawing. And I thought about it for a second. Should I just give up or just go back and do another drawing? And I knew that if I gave up, my teacher would be really pissed at me, right?
Yeah.
So I said, screw this. I went back in, I sat down, I arched the billboards, I arched the seats the right way, I did the drawing. I went back in an hour later. I show him the drawing. He goes, "Now you got it, kid. This is great." He says to me, "Print the t-shirt up." And that t-shirt was used for like 4 or 5 years selling at Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
But had I walked away, had I taken that criticism so personal, right? One, he scared the shit out of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two, I was kind of nervous, like of failing. I was nervous of failing. But I said, I'm going to give it one more shot. And it changed me, So even in the toughest times, you have to persevere and really like give it your best.
Did you get royalties on the t-shirt?
No, I was working for a company. So
yeah. Okay.
I have the original painting that I could probably sell now, it's probably worth, a lot more than it was back then,
Sure. Well, it's interesting. I think that you've actually kind of answered what my next thoughts were, which was about any mistakes or failures that really stick out or resonate in your mind. And would that one be one that resonates, or is there anything else?
I don't know if they're mistakes. I think sometimes you interpret direction a little differently. When I worked for a company called Interfilm, we were doing I was doing movie posters, and I was working all through the night. And you'd send it to the creative director for the big film agency that was going to print all the posters up. And I spelled Lowe's Theater, right? It was Loews, something like that. I had put an apostrophe S. And
Right.
They had called me up and I said, "No S in Lowe's," right? So we were working on a computer and at the time. And so I said, all right. So I removed it on a computer, but the computer had crashed. And so the file, it was saved, but when it saved the file with the apostrophe.
Right.
So
right.
I sent the final proof to the people to get approval at 4 a.m. And they just wrote back, "Great, print it." And when it printed with the apostrophe. And they were like,
"No,
told you no apostrophe. You changed it. How did it get back in there? And so they were going to hold us liable for this massive printing. And I said, well, I sent you the last proof at like 4 a.m. My computer crashed and all that, but I sent you one more time the proof. And that was and that happens often. Things come up and it's beyond your control. But
how'd you fix it?
Well, they didn't. I had to fix the image and they had to reprint all the posters.
Wow.
You know?
How many posters?
Oh, thousands of
man.
posters. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. That poster would probably be worth something with the apostrophe because it was an error.
One of the first posters I did for Dead & Company last year, I inadvertently put the date as instead of 2024, I put 2025 on the poster.
So it hadn't quite occurred yet.
It had gone to the silk screen or anything.
Right.
I got a phone call at like 3 a.m. Like, dude, you put the wrong date on that poster. I'm like, oh my God, how did I do that? You know, I don't know why I put 2025, you know, and made the changes. I think they had already started printing the posters, but it was easily fixed. They fixed it and it was done. But those mistakes, sometimes they happen. And the clients, they have the final say. They're supposed to proof what I do. And if they miss it, it still falls on me.
Right.
You need another set of eyes sometimes. And I'll get my wife or my business partner. I show a lot of different people sometimes, you know, so.
You ever dealt with any of your own personal self-doubt?
I think a lot of times Tom and I were working on a lot of Penguin book covers in the past. And I would say a lot of times I'm sitting there and I know Tom, he's a great illustrator, you know. We have a different way of working, but the way he works sometimes, I'm always like, wow, I wish I did stuff like that, you know. And so I would show him my designs and he says, dude, the stuff is good. What are you worrying about? I said, well, it doesn't really, you know, your stuff looks so much better. He goes, it's not that it's different, you know?
Right.
And then we would talk about the work, you know, but a lot of times it would seem that he could crank them out faster, but he's going through the same struggles I am, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing that because sometimes he's working at his studio, I'm working in my studio, and then we meet at Havoc Studios to collaborate and do the work, you know?
Right.
So we have that bond to bounce things off of each other. If he wasn't there, I'd probably have to call, you know, reach out to other people. I have a good friend of mine I grew up with. My friend, he's another Tony, and I'd call up Tony Santo and I'd say to him, what do you think of this? Right? I said, which design do you like better? And he'll say, I like this one. And then I would always go with the opposite of what he says.
Right.
And so one time he calls me up and he says, how come every time you show me stuff, you never pick what I like? I said, it's not that I don't like what you're picking. My feelings are stronger towards the other design. But he always says, like, it seems like you're picking the opposite. I'm like, well, I know your taste and it's good taste, but it might not be right for this project. And I just need that reassurance, you know, as we've grown older together. I mean, I've known him since 5th grade. You know, when I show him stuff now, he tells me what's wrong with, he'll tell me I don't think this is right. And he's right on the money with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I try, but when we were young, when we were like 22, 23, I'm like, what does he know? You know, and I'd make fun of him. I'm like, he doesn't know anything, you know, but that's the bond we would have, him and I, you know?
Yeah.
And he would show me his stuff that he's working on. And, you know, I would tell him either I loved it or I'd tell him to draw more, you know, and that's, I think having good team of friends around you, to be honest with you, is what shapes an artist. Without good people around, you're on your own, and it kind of sucks being on your own sometimes. You know?
Yeah. Anything about the industry that drives you crazy?
Deadlines can be tough. You know, years ago when I was in my 30s, I could stay up 3 days straight. Like the Grateful Dead, I'd send them a bunch of designs, and they would wait until the very end, and they would say, all right, we need these 20 paintings done by Monday. You know, if it was Friday, they say we need them by Monday. And so now I'm not sleeping for 3 days to get all the paintings, you know. And now as I'm older, I still have that drive, but I can't stay up, you know, 3 days straight.
Yeah.
Stay up maybe one night. And, but deadlines are tough. And, clients today, they try to give you a little bit of leeway, but sometimes it's not the client. Sometimes it's the band. Bands will wait until the very last minute for approval. And then it's up to me to really, either kick it into gear or, and so I'm pretty good at kicking it up and getting it done. We try to give them deadlines, say, I need X amount of days to do this, and they do their best. But sometimes things just happen that are beyond your control, but you have to be prepared to, for those kind of moments. And that's what's the difference between, an artist and an artist that needs to, being able to meet deadlines are the most crucial. My clients know that we can meet deadlines under any circumstance.
Yeah. How do you think about Havoc in risks that maybe you take on with your work? Do you try to push the boundaries, or do you maybe play it safe just to kind of stick with what the client wants?
Well, this is going back to my education with my teacher, right? So he would say to us, listen, always do the job first. No matter what it is, you do the job first. He says, then once the job is done and you're either on paper, then you do it the way you want to do it. So you can show the client what they wanted to see.
Right.
And then you show them what you feel passionate about. And 99% of the time, they always go with what we're passionate about.
Right.
And I don't ever want to insult anybody and say that idea sucks.
Yeah.
I always say to them, until I get it on paper, I'm not going to know if what you're envisioning is going to work or not. And I always want to give them the benefit of the doubt that what they're seeing in their heads is maybe a good direction. But until I do it and Tom and I work it out, we don't know. And then we take our own risks. And a lot of times they look at it and go, I didn't think of it that way. And they usually kind of gravitate and they trust us for it,
Yeah.
Even photography. When it comes to photography, we've been shooting down to shipping terminal for 25 years. I've shot over 1 million photos.
Wow.
At these terminals, right? That's why this one finger is really big and you'll hit that shutter button, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, like, when I'm shooting photos of men and women working, I'm not looking for the guy in the clean vest. I'm looking for the guy with tattoos. I'm looking for the woman whose hair is messed up. She looks like she's been in the trenches for 20 years.
Yeah.
And she looks like she can probably bench press 500 pounds, And I want to capture them in their environment, in the trenches when they're working. I don't want anyone to go Hollywood on me. I don't want to capture the industry the way corporations feel they should capture it. We want to capture the men and women.
Real things.
And that's what I love about is when they're having tough times and their hands are all bandaged up and they're working in 10 degrees below zero. And that's the photography that we love, Sometimes we're asked to make pretty pictures. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes we do. But that's what separates us, when we're designing a calendar. We're capturing real life, and they see themselves when a longshoreman, man or woman, sees themselves in their environment working hard, they can go home to their family and say, this is what mommy and daddy do for a living. And they show them these photos that capture the action, Yeah,
that's great.
And that means a lot to us when they ask us for an extra calendar or they want a picture of themselves, for their wall,
Right.
It goes along.
Well, that's really interesting. You're talking about capturing real life, tough moments. But when things are tough for you at work, I'm thinking it's creative. What are some of your go-to kind of stress relievers?
Years ago, going back to my instructor, I had done an illustration in class, and he looked at me and he said, how many books do you own? And I said, I own maybe 30 books. And I was really proud of it, 30 art books, And he said, I own 4,000 art books. He says, I laugh all the way to the bank. And I said, really? He says, yeah, because sometimes I need to educate myself. And I educate myself through books, looking at old masters, illustrators, fine artists, fashion, photography, everything. So over the years, we have built up a huge library at Havoc. And when I'm like having a tough time, I look for inspiration in books, and I sit there studying. I study, and the next thing you know, your slump becomes inspirational, and you work through it, and that's what makes. We're not copying. There's a difference between copying and being inspired.
Being inspired, right? Sure.
So we're looking, and if it really gets tough, we go to museums. I'll grab my wife on a Sunday, and we got to go to the Met. My teacher used to tell me all the time, I could live in the Met for the rest of my life, Metropolitan Museum of Art, the rest of my life, because we used to go there all the time to draw. And I was like, really? And so, like, I've been going to the Met for the past, 35, 40 years. I never get tired of the Met.
Yeah.
And that's my home. Like, I feel that's a second home to me when I go there,
Anything in your career trajectory that you would change?
I laugh about that all the time, because all my friends now are retiring, and they're making all these big salaries, retired, pensions and stuff. And I look back and who was a fireman, who's a police officer, who works for the TA, the subways, and they're doing other things in life. And I say to myself, sometimes you make a lot of money as an artist, and sometimes you really don't make a lot of money,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a struggle to make money with your art, And I say to myself, man, I could have been a fireman, retired now. You're making like...
Come on. Could you have done that, you think?
Well, then
knowing who you are, could you have done that?
I can't. So, and retirement, when my friends talk about retiring isn't in my vocabulary.
Right.
My teacher always said, how long do you want to be an artist for? 5 years or for the rest of your life? And so he trained us to be an artist for the rest of our lives.
Right.
So as I get older, my work right now is to keep painting for the galleries that I'm in and selling my work online. And the companies, the fans that buy, a lot of fans buy my work and they want original artwork from me. They love what I do and they reach out to me all the time. And I love that. When somebody remembers me for what I've done, it makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I do a drawing, as soon as I'm done with that drawing that I've done, it doesn't belong to me anymore, right? It belongs to somebody else. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
As much as I would love to keep it for, whatever, I always feel once I'm done with a piece of artwork, it needs to go to somebody else and it needs to resonate with them. That's why we're artists. We create things and then we give it away. We sell it or we give it away or whatever it is. I always admired the Grateful Dead allowing fans to tape their shows, and make recordings and bootlegs. And I've learned that it never affected their record sales.
Yeah.
It created a whole other industry. And this is going back before Napster and before.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And fans would trade cassettes with each other and they would still buy albums.
Yeah.
So I love that idea,
Yeah.
And I feel like, when I create my artwork, it should go to somebody else.
It's interesting. Pearl Jam does the same, very similar thing. And I'm sure they probably took the lead from the Dead in that. They're fine with bootlegs and things like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Let's talk about the next 5 years. Let's go resume question.
Right.
So where do you see yourself personally in the next 5 years?
I see myself doing doodles every morning and creating paintings, fine art, and photography, and continuing to sell in the galleries. I think I'll always, and I think I'll pick and choose some of the freelance work some of the clientele work that we do, because extreme deadlines are for like a younger generation.
Yeah.
I think, hustling to get those deadlines done. But,
do you have other employees?
No, just me and Tom.
Got it.
We're a two-man.
So if it's a younger person's deadline, is that even on the horizon of ever bringing somebody in?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, our clients want to make sure we're doing the art and we're not farming it to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know? And even when it comes to editing photos, I'll spend a day shooting and I'll have, 2,000 or 3,000 photos that I have to edit. I could leave it up to an apprentice to come in. And we've hired apprentices before. And what ends up happening is instead of us giving them work, we end up like teaching them stuff.
Right.
To do their own portfolios and work.
Right. Sure.
So we always feel bad, we pay them, but we want to get the younger generation up and running. And we're teaching them, the business end of it, what it takes to have a deadline, the process of thumbnails, which schools do. But I think drawing in general, if you want to be an illustrator, has taken a back seat in a lot of these colleges. And I remember my teacher saying to me, if you can draw hands and feet, you can work anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And that always resonated with me. So I tell any apprentice who comes in, whether it's a graphic designer, even if you're not good at drawing and you're a graphic designer, you should be understanding, the process of how things get done, So yeah, I see myself painting until I grow old, until I can't paint anymore, and that's painting skeletons, having fun,
What about Havoc in the next 5 years?
Havoc? Well, Havoc will always be around. We always talk about, we say, are we ever going to retire Havoc? I don't think so. I mean, I think my business partner and I mean, we kind of see ourselves at this point, I don't see ourselves slowing down too much more. But we are getting picky and choosy at which jobs we want to do and which ones we don't.
Yeah.
We always have we meet so many wonderful people. Tom and I have a tough time saying no to people.
Yeah.
We really do. Because most of the people that hire us know us really well. They're not strangers, or they come recommended to us from other friends, other clients. And so we want to make it work. And sometimes people, they feel funny and they're like, well, we don't know if we can afford you. And I say, well, we'll let you know if you can't afford us, so we always, within reason, we try to do every single job we possibly can,
So this podcast is the sounds of success. So, Tony, how do you define success?
How do I define success? I think sticking with your philosophies of whatever you're doing, and giving it your best shot, and you got to weather the storms. I think when you can weather the storms as a company and you pull through and you work really hard, I think that's success. And whether it's a small painting for a family that's celebrating their wedding anniversary, or you're doing a mural that is 40 feet long and it's inspiring all the longshoremen.
Right.
I think those, as long as you're making art and staying true to your art, I think that's success. And sometimes staying true to your art doesn't mean you're going to make money, and a lot of artists, they work for free, or I think you have to, my teacher always told us, you can't go to the bank with a painting to pay your mortgage. You have to make sure that you're getting paid for the work that you do. That's because it's like any profession, being a doctor or being a lawyer or being a sanitation worker or a plumber, you take pride in what you're doing, and you do a good job at it. I think that's success in life. I met a guy, he's a sanitation guy. He loves his job. And he goes, every day I'm going around, I'm picking up the garbage, throwing it in, I'm meeting friends and family along the way. And he goes, I love my job. I thought that was so cool,
Yeah.
And he just would tell me all these stories, just going around picking up trash,
Yeah.
And I love that in someone, because he didn't think of it as, I'm picking up garbage. I'm doing something. I'm cleaning up the planet. I'm doing stuff.
Yeah.
If something fell on the floor, he'd pick it up and throw it in the back of the garbage, truck and keep going. You know,
Yeah.
he inspired me. Which was
All right. So now we know how you define success, but you know the next question, Tony.
what's that?
Are you successful?
I think I am, you know, and there's always room to grow. You know, I don't see my life as success is tough, you know, to define, because you can be successful and not make a lot of money, or be successful. Like it's hard to pinpoint. You know, I think I've always done what I love to do, and I've hustled. I've been a go-getter. Like you know, I go, you have to go after it. I can't explain it any other way, you know? And so in many ways, I feel I've done what I've been set out to do, you know? I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint, because sometimes a lot of paintings that you do aren't good. They suck, you know? But you learn so much from all the bad paintings. You know, if I didn't do all those terrible paintings, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a hard road, and you don't know if the road you're on you don't have a crystal ball. So you don't know if what you're doing, how it's going to resonate, you know, years later. Like when I did all that work for the Grateful Dead when I was in my 20s, I didn't know it was going to resonate with the fans now.
Yeah.
No clue. So when I do a signing and I meet people and they share with me their love for what I've done 30 years ago, that to me is heartwarming.
Yeah.
You know, I made an impact with someone. It's like a musician writing a song, or a doctor saving someone's life. You know, either way, you know, your impact, you don't know how it's going to, you know, like resonate years later. So for me, hearing from people, and I hear from people all the time, you know, and it makes me feel good. So I feel it's successful in my life, you know.
I would say that is successful. The impact that you're having on in the profession that you've chosen. I think that's a great answer. I really do.
Jim, this is really shaping up. Let's talk about liner notes.
Any great album, even an Iron Maiden, is going to have great liner notes.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the moment where your fans are really going to get to know you. Tell me someone who is the closest to you. Adult person, first name only.
Valerie.
Perfect. If I asked Valerie to describe your quirks or weird habits, what do you think she'd say?
That's a tough question.
You're perfect, Tony. I mean, look, you've traveled through life with zero quirks and zero weird habits. You're the first guest that has actually made every perfect move throughout the course of their life. Congratulations, you did it. You did it, man.
I think joking, you know, I joke around way too much, and I
ever got you in trouble?
It gets me in trouble all the time. You know,
come on. Like, in what way? Is it just like, oh, come on, Tony, or is it like something that's actually happened?
I can't. You know, like,
I'll get you off the hook. Don't you worry about it. We'll move it. We'll come back to that if you think of something good. Okay.
Right.
Okay. If you could master any skill instantaneously, what would it be?
Any skill.
He's mastered everything. You've mastered everything.
Any skill. I would say carpentry.
Carpentry, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Boom. Magically, you're a master carpenter. What's the first thing you build?
I would, a good man cave, a good house.
Nice.
That's
all right. I like that.
A barn.
I like that.
You know,
that's cool. All right. Dead or alive? Who would you have lunch with?
I would have lunch with Michelangelo.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
What's one question you'd ask him? And that's an ad lib there. That's not even on the...
Who's your chiropractor?
Okay. That is spectacular. So you have a great lunch with Michelangelo.
Right.
But inevitably, the check's going to come. They place it in the middle. Who pays?
I would pay.
Instantaneously, or do you kind of think about it for a second?
No, I wouldn't even think of it twice.
What if he grabbed?
Huh?
Would you let him? If he grabbed it?
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't let him even do it.
Let him.
You're a
no.
good man. You're a good man.
No.
All right, so Michelangelo, I don't think his money's worth as much today.
I don't think I don't think the Pope actually gave him a cent.
Yeah, I don't think so. So, money or meaning?
Meaning.
Tell me more.
Well, because my whole life is built on meaning, and money is a necessity, but I think I was fortunate enough to to feed my family with meaning,
Yeah.
and I'm really happy about that. I'm proud to say that I'm an artist. My kids are proud to say their dad is an artist. My wife is my biggest fan is my wife.
That's
I mean,
great.
She will talk to people and tell them all about me and know more than I,
That's great.
And she probably has that core cancer,
Yeah, but you couldn't even think of it. I mean, we should get her. I'm on a whole new podcast with your wife to find out more about you because you haven't answered anything.
I know. I feel shame.
Okay, you in the pre-questionnaire, which is very generic, but you did talk a little bit about some very, very meaningful travel that you've had in your life. So talk to me a little bit about that. What was the best travel experience that you've had?
Well, when I went to Italy, I was young. When I was a little kid, I would go to the library. I was in second grade, and I'd get these big art books, and I'd bring them home. And my mom would say, "You can't even read. What are you looking at these art books for?" And I'm like, "Well, I like the paintings in them, So when we went to Italy, I wanted to see the Sistine Chapel, And I was like, I think I was 12 years old. I'm in Italy. We see the Sistine Chapel, and my mom says I laid down on the floor. And I just stared at the painting for an hour, 2 hours. I didn't want to leave, And to me, that was like, so amazing,
Have you been back since?
I have, yes. I have.
When's the last time you went? Same experience?
Same experience. My
Yeah.
cousin, it was about 12 years ago. We went to, my wife and I, we went to Rome, went to Venice. We went all over, and we went to every single museum and church we could go to.
Wow, that's impressive.
So like seeing that art when I was so young, made an impact. And then when I was a little kid, when I was in fourth grade, I won a trip to Mexico, and I remember going.
How'd you win how'd that happen?
Well, when I was in fourth grade, I played every single sweepstakes. I wanted to play every single sweepstakes that 1 year.
Okay.
So I wanted to win something. So I remember, like, my cousin worked for Jack in the Box in New York City, in Staten Island. And they had a sweepstakes. You fill out this form. And I was in fourth grade. And we went home, and I said to my cousin, "Can you fill out the sweepstakes for me? Put my name." He goes, "Yeah, you're never going to win." And I said, "Well, I don't know." He goes, "Just fill out So he didn't want to do it for me. So he goes to my aunt. I go crying to my aunt and said, "He won't fill out my address or whatever." So my cousin hesitantly filled it all out. The next day I forgot to take the sweepstakes home with me. So I called my aunt up and said, "Can you please mail out that sweepstakes?" So she says, "All right." So she goes to the mailbox. She puts it in the mailbox. My cousin ended up going to the game. The Cosmos soccer team was playing with someone else. I forget who it was, but Pele, I think, was on the team. And, they had a big bin at Meadowlands Stadium.
Right.
They roll it and they pull out my name. I won a trip to Mexico.
No way.
I won a night. I won a car. Right.
And how old
so
are
my
you?
cousin goes, I'm in fourth grade. So I was like 12
and you
years
won a
old.
car.
Now. I won a car. I couldn't drive.
Good for you.
So we sell the car because it was a Toyota Corolla back then in 1992. Like no one had Toyota Corolla. My father was like, "Oh, box. What are we going to do with this?"
Yeah.
So we sold the car, bought 2 more tickets. We went to Mexico with the family. And I remember we would go driving from the airport to the hotel, and I'd see these big buildings in Mexico covered in murals. And I was just blown away by Mexican art, you know? And I love Mexican, all these like different lithographers and woodcut. And, you know, so I love Posada. I love Diego Rivera. I love these Mexican muralists, you know? Years later, I find out that Posada, who was a big inspiration for my Grateful Dead artwork, we have the same birthday. He was born February 2nd, 1865. I was born February 2nd, 1965.
Wow,
so we're
that's
100
crazy.
years apart.
That's
so
crazy.
I have a feeling that I have a little Posada, a little Mexican blood in me.
Yeah.
You know,
that's great.
My fondness for Mexican art is, you know, is so.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about books and movies. You said that you built up the art collection, but I'm curious if there's any other books that you've read that was so meaningful that somebody asks you and you'd say, you got to read this book, and you give it as a gift.
I'm not a big reader when it comes to reading books, unless I have to read. Like if we're illustrating a book,
right?
You know, read Beowulf, or I'd read
right.
If I'm forced to. But I'm not a reader. I'm a visual person.
Yes.
So I love looking at books. I mean, I'll read what the artist, you know, the meaning behind a lot of art books, but I'm not someone who's going to sit down and read, you know, a novel. I might read the Da Vinci Code or whatever it was back then when everybody was reading them, or, you know, some of the classics. But I'm not really, to me, like, if I'm illustrating Robinson Crusoe or Jekyll and Hyde, you know, or I'm illustrating A Christmas Carol, you know, I'm reading them for the purposes of doing illustrations.
Doing the illustration, right?
But
okay, so then let's go to the other side then. Do movies resonate with you more? Being visual?
All movies do. I mean,
okay, great. So let's go. Which movie does everyone just have to see?
Well, I think,
see, it's gonna be tough.
Orson Welles' Citizen Kane. I mean,
okay,
that movie, you know. But
I'll give you one more.
One more,
because I feel like you got a bunch of them in your head right now.
Well, I love, you know, the Rocky movie. You know, Rocky movies.
Oh boy, that's the third time that's come up. You know that?
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
I mean, and I've been watching Tulsa King. I have an admiration for Sylvester Stallone and his movie making. He's such a down to earth kind of guy, and you know, one of my favorite Italians.
All right, Jim, this is gold. What do you think about a bonus track?
So you are building a great album. I mean, this has been a great conversation, and I appreciate the patience up front. But now it's time. Your fans want a bonus track. Okay? So we started out this episode with a track that we felt captured you, your nature, and your personality. Right? You didn't even know what it was, the Dire Straits song. But I challenge you to go back, and I think you're going to like it. But now your fans, they want a bonus track from you. A song that you think best represents you right now. So, Tony, lay it on us.
Well, Brown-Eyed Woman from the Grateful Dead. And I think because my wife is such an inspiration in my life, you know, I feel that song, love that song, you know. And
does she have brown eyes?
She does.
Okay. If she had blue eyes, that'd be a problem, right?
I know.
That's good. Okay.
And so that's one of my go-to songs. Is what I love.
Yeah, that's great.
If it was heavy metal, you know, it would be probably
go right back to Iron Maiden.
Number of the Beast, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So it's either brown-eyed woman or Number of the Beast. It's a toss-up.
And when I go running, I listen to Barry Manilow when I go running.
Oh, interesting. All right.
I love ABBA. You know, as
Coca Cabana.
My music,
Coca Cabana.
And I've never seen Barry in concert, but I mean, these are things like when I'm working. You know, sometimes I listen to music as background noise.
Yeah.
When I run, you know, some music I gravitate to. When I draw, you know, I'm listening to ABBA or the Grateful Dead. You know, it depends on the project I'm working on. You know, if it's operas, you know, illustrating stuff, it might be Andre Bocelli. You know, there are different things that I I love, There's no
Yeah, that's
rhyme or
great.
reason for my bad taste in music sometimes,
Yeah.
My wife will say, how is it you like Barry Manilow? I don't know, I like Barry Manilow.
Well, Tony, I think that's a great song, and it's a great reason why you like that song. But I'm going to give you a quick fun fact about that song.
Okay.
According to guestspectator.com, Brown Eyed Woman by the Grateful Dead has been covered by 74 different artists. In fact, that song is so popular, it's been performed at nearly 1,200 concert performances. And that's very impressive. And I think that you've picked a great song that has been reproduced by many artists in many venues. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, Tony, look, that's a perfect closing note for today's session. I want to give you a big thanks. Tony, have a Media Design. Thank you for recording your album with us today. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Jim. I mean, you really make me feel at home speaking to you. And I really appreciate, I love this. I mean, the conversation we had, it reinforces, it makes me step back a little bit and reevaluate things I've done. And I think that's what's important.
That's great.
When you have with people, it brings back good memories of things in my life.
Absolutely. That's a perfect closing, because I think if there's one thing that we all seem to share, regardless of background or profession, it's our love of music. And it's all about that love of music and the connections that we make with great people like Tony today. Until the next recording, I'm Jim Lombardo, where sounds of success are unscripted, unfiltered, and unforgettable. Thanks again, Tony.